Long before the Pilgrims landed on Plymouth Rock, before Columbus even dreamed of sailing west, an American city rivaled the size of medieval London. And yet, almost no one alive today knows its name. Chapter 1. The City That Shouldn't Have Existed. In the middle of the American Midwest, just across the river from what is now St. Louis, Missouri, lies a quiet field of grass. To the untrained eye, it's nothing but a few gentle mounds rising from the earth, silent, green, and unassuming. But 1,000 years ago, this place was alive. The air was thick with the smell of wood smoke and river mud. Children played along bustling avenues. Traders carried shells from the Gulf of Mexico, copper from the Great Lakes, and obsidian from the Rockies. Drums echoed from massive temples built on earthen pyramids. This was Cahokia, the largest and most sophisticated city ever built north of Mexico before European contact. At its peak around the year 1100 CE, Cahokia was home to as many as 30,000 people, larger than London, Paris, or Rome at the time. And yet, somehow, within just 2 centuries, it was gone. No war, no famine recorded, no clear reason, just silence. Chapter 2. Discovery Beneath the Cornfields. In the 1600s, French explorers first came through the Mississippi Valley and saw the mounds, dozens of them, some over 100 feet tall. They thought they were natural hills. A few speculated that a lost tribe of Israel or even survivors from Atlantis had built them. But the truth lay buried beneath layers of soil, waiting for modern archaeologists. In the early 1800s, American settlers began plowing through the fields, unaware that they were farming on top of the remains of temples, plazas, and even human graves. The largest mound, now called Monk's Mound, stood over 100 feet tall and covered more ground than the Great Pyramid of Giza. When scientists finally began to study the site in the 20th century, they realized this wasn't the work of a small, primitive tribe. It was the capital of an empire that had stretched across the Mississippi River basin. And its story completely changed what we thought we knew about pre-Columbian America. Chapter 3. The Builders of Earth and Sky. The people of Cahokia were part of what archaeologists call the Mississippian culture, a network of societies that flourished between 800 and 1400 CE. Their architecture was unique. They didn't build with stone, but with earth. Massive pyramids and platforms were shaped from layers of packed soil, each basket of dirt carried by hand. One of the most astonishing features was a wooden circle, a giant calendar of red cedar posts known today as Woodhenge. Like Stonehenge in England, it tracked the solstices and equinoxes with uncanny precision. At dawn on the summer solstice, the sun would rise directly over Monk's Mound, casting long shadows across the ceremonial plaza. This wasn't random construction. It was astronomy. It was mathematics. It was civilization. The city itself was laid out with mathematical accuracy, a grand plaza surrounded by pyramids, temples, and elite residences. At its center stood the massive pyramid of Monk's Mound, upon which likely sat the temple of Cahokia's ruler, the Great Sun, a figure both political and divine. Chapter 4. The Mystery of the Beaded Burial. In 1967, archaeologists uncovered something extraordinary, a burial chamber beneath one of the smaller mounds. Inside lay the skeleton of a man resting on a bed of more than 20,000 shell beads, arranged in the shape of a falcon. This man, whom scientists nicknamed the Birdman, was likely a Cahokian ruler or priest, perhaps even a warrior king. Surrounding him were the remains of more than 50 human sacrifices, both men and women, buried alongside him to serve in the afterlife. It was a shocking discovery that revealed the complexity and the dark side of Cahokia's spiritual world. The Birdman symbol, part human, part hawk, represented divine power, warfare, and rebirth. In Cahokian art, he soared between worlds, between the earth of the living and the sky of the gods. This was not a simple tribal village. It was a theocracy, a city built on faith, order, and fear. Chapter 5. The Network of Power. From Cahokia, influence spread for hundreds of miles. Settlements as far away as Wisconsin and Georgia showed signs of Cahokian culture. Pottery styles, iconography, and trade goods. Its merchants controlled routes along the Mississippi River, linking the Great Lakes to the Gulf of Mexico. Some researchers even argue Cahokia maintained an early form of centralized government, collecting tribute, organizing labor, and enforcing its will through religious authority. Its people built roads straight as arrows and plazas large enough to host thousands during festivals. Imagine the spectacle: firelight flickering across painted faces, drums echoing against the mounds, priests in elaborate headdresses offering prayers to the gods of corn, sun, and thunder. At its heart, Cahokia was both empire and enigma, a civilization of staggering accomplishment that left behind no written language, only symbols carved into shell and copper. Chapter 6. Collapse without a sound. Around 1350 CE, something happened. The population began to decline. The grand plazas grew empty. The great mound-top temples fell silent. Within a few generations, Cahokia was gone. But why? Theories abound. Some say climate change, a little ice age that reduced crop yields and brought floods. Others point to deforestation. The vast consumption of wood for houses, walls, and fire may have devastated local ecosystems. Still others suspect social unrest, perhaps a revolt against the elite, or spiritual disillusionment when the old gods failed to deliver. Whatever the cause, by the time Columbus set sail in 1492, Cahokia had already been abandoned for over a century. Its people scattered into smaller tribes, carrying fragments of their culture into what would become the Cherokee, the Creek, and other native nations. Chapter 8. Rediscovery and Erasure. For centuries, American historians ignored Cahokia. It didn't fit the colonial narrative that civilization came to America from Europe. How could advanced astronomy, urban planning, and monumental architecture exist in North America before Europeans? It was inconvenient. So they buried it, figuratively and literally. Even as cities like St. Louis grew around it, developers leveled dozens of mounds to make way for railroads and factories. One mound was even used as a baseball field. By the mid-1900s, fewer than 80 of the original 120 mounds remained. Only in recent decades has Cahokia received the recognition it deserves, as a UNESCO World Heritage Site and as the beating heart of a forgotten chapter in America's story. Chapter 9. The Ghosts Beneath the Highways. Today, you can drive past Cahokia on Interstate 55. Thousands of cars rush by every day, unaware that beneath the asphalt lies the memory of a civilization that once ruled the Mississippi Valley. Visitors who climb Monk's Mound speak of a strange stillness at the top, as if the wind itself carries whispers of the past. You can see the outline of where the great plaza once stood, and if you close your eyes, you might imagine the crowds, the drums, the fires glowing against the night sky. This is America's forgotten Rome, built not of marble, but of earth, not by kings from across the ocean, but by the native hands of this land itself. Epilogue. What Cahokia tells us about ourselves. Cahokia's rise and fall is more than an archaeological curiosity. It's a warning. It tells us that greatness can emerge anywhere, from any people, in any time, but also that even the mightiest societies can vanish without a trace. Urban sprawl, environmental strain, political division, all played a part in its end. Sound familiar? 1,000 years later, America stands on its own mound of innovation and power. But beneath our highways and skyscrapers lie lessons written not in books, but in the earth. Cahokia reminds us that civilizations are temporary, but the land remembers everything.